Captain Henry Cross sat at the edge of his bunk aboard the Arctic-class transport ship Resolute. The hum of the engines was a dull background noise to the tension in the room. A tablet glowed in his hands, displaying classified orders marked with the seal of the Department of Defense. He frowned as he read through the directive for the third time, his gut twisting with unease. "Captain," a voice interrupted. Cross looked up to see Lieutenant Adrian Miller, his chief engineer, standing in the doorway with a furrowed brow. "We're loaded and ready to depart, but there's still no word on the nature of the distress call. Just coordinates, nothing else." Cross nodded, setting the tablet aside. "I don't like it either, Miller, but orders are orders. Gather the team, we move out in 20. As Miller left, Cross leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Rescue missions weren't uncommon in his line of work, but this one felt different. The lack of detail in the briefing, the classified status, and most of all, the presence of Agent Mason Cole, a government spook parachuted into his team at the last minute, didn't sit well with him. By the time the team gathered in the ship's small conference room, the tension was palpable. Sergeant Paul Riggs, a towering man with a permanent scowl, sat sharpening his combat knife. Dr. Elias Warren, the team's biologist, adjusted his glasses and reviewed a pile of notes about Arctic ecosystems. Agent Cole stood apart, leaning against the wall, his face an unreadable mask. Cross cleared his throat. "We're headed to Ice Station Theta, located on the northern glacier shelf. It's a research outpost run by the government. They've gone dark after transmitting a single distress signal. Our job is to locate survivors and bring them back. Any questions?" Dr. Warren raised a hand. "What kind of research are we talking about? Environmental studies? Glacial surveys?" Cole spoke for the first time. "That information is classified. Your focus should be on executing the mission." Riggs snorted. "Classified? You're asking us to walk into a frozen hellhole blind. Sounds like a setup." Cross shot Riggs a warning glance but shared his unease. "We follow protocol. Stay sharp and stick together. Let's get moving." The journey to Ice Station Theta took hours, the Resolute cutting through Arctic waters under a relentless snowstorm. Cross couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into something far worse than a simple rescue mission. As they neared their destination, the station's faint silhouette came into view, partially buried beneath layers of ice and snow. The wind howled as if warning them to turn back. "Station Theta, this is Captain Cross. Respond if you can hear us," Cross said into his comms. Static was the only reply. He turned to his team. "Gear up, we're going in." The team disembarked from the Resolute, the biting Arctic wind slicing through their heavy gear. Ice Station Theta loomed ahead, a massive dome-like structure covered in a thick layer of frost and snow. The facility's outer lights were dim or shattered, leaving only the faint glow of their headlamps to pierce the darkness. "Charming place," Miller muttered, clutching a case of tools. "Looks like no one's been here in years." "Stay focused," Cross replied. He led the team to the station's entrance, a reinforced steel hatch covered in strange claw-like marks. Riggs examined the markings, his breath visible in the frigid air. "What the hell made these? Polar bears don't leave marks like that." "Not our concern right now," Cross said. "Miller, get this door open." Miller crouched by the control panel, his gloved hands working quickly to bypass the frozen circuits. After a tense minute, the hatch creaked open, revealing a long, dark corridor. The station's interior was eerily silent, with only the faint hum of emergency power breaking the quiet. Inside, the walls were lined with frost, and the floor was littered with debris, broken furniture, shattered glass, and bloodstains frozen into the ice. "Looks like a war zone," Riggs muttered, gripping his rifle. Warren knelt by one of the bloodstains, inspecting it with a flashlight. "This isn't fresh, but it's not ancient either. Whatever happened here, it was violent." The team moved deeper into the station, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. In the control room, they found a console still partially functional. Miller powered it up, and static-filled recordings began to play. Fragmented voices spoke of containment breaches and biohazard protocols. What the hell were they containing? Warren asked, his voice tinged with unease. Cole remained silent, his expression unreadable. As the team pressed further, they found more signs of destruction: collapsed walls, overturned equipment, and claw marks that grew more prominent. Cross's unease deepened. It wasn't just the destruction, it was the absence of bodies. Something had taken the people of Ice Station Theta, and it hadn't left behind much. The team reached an elevator shaft deep within the heart of Ice Station Theta. Its industrial frame stretched down into the glacier, disappearing into a seemingly endless void of ice. Rust streaked the metal walls, and frost coated the control panel. "This is where the signal originates," Cole said, breaking the silence. He gestured toward the elevator. "We need to go down." Cross stared into the dark shaft, his instincts screaming against it. "What's down there, Cole? What are we walking into?" "Your mission is to locate survivors," Cole replied evenly, avoiding the question. The signal came from below. Cross clenched his jaw but didn't argue. He motioned for the team to move. "Riggs, take point. Miller, you're with me. Warren, stay alert." The team loaded onto the elevator, its ancient mechanism groaning as it descended into the icy depths. The hum of the motor filled the tense silence, punctuated by the occasional creak of stressed metal. The headlamps illuminated the frost-encrusted walls as they descended, the air growing colder and heavier. "What kind of research station builds a shaft this deep?" Warren murmured, breaking the silence. "Not one that's studying ice cores," Miller muttered under his breath. As the elevator slowed, the temperature dropped further, and the walls of the shaft began to change. Frost gave way to smooth metallic panels, their surfaces marked with strange symbols and patterns that pulsed faintly with light. The team exchanged uneasy glances, their breath fogging in the cold. "What the hell is this?" Riggs asked, his voice low. The elevator stopped with a jolt, and the doors slid open to reveal a massive underground chamber. The space was cavernous, with ceilings lost in the shadows above. Strange, angular structures jutted from the icy walls, their surfaces glowing faintly. The air was unnervingly still, thick with an unnatural cold that seeped into their bones. Cross stepped out first, his weapon raised. "Eyes open. Stay close." They moved cautiously into the chamber, their footsteps echoing eerily. The strange structures loomed over them, their designs unlike anything human. One resembled an obelisk, its surface etched with alien runes that shifted and glowed as they approached. "Captain," Warren said, his voice trembling. This isn't natural. This is engineered." Cole walked ahead, unbothered by the alien surroundings. "We're getting closer. Keep moving." Cross's patience snapped. He grabbed Cole's arm, spinning him around. "You've known what's down here this whole time. Start talking, or you'll be the first to find out what else is hiding in this place." Cole hesitated, his usual stoic demeanor cracking for the first time. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." The chamber funneled into a narrow passageway, its walls lined with reinforced steel doors. Each was marked with a series of numbers and letters, as well as strange alien glyphs. Some doors were sealed tight, their locking mechanisms frozen in place. Others were ajar, revealing dark, empty rooms that reeked of decay. Riggs approached one of the open vaults, his rifle at the ready. Inside, he found a skeletal structure unlike anything he'd ever seen. An alien creature with elongated limbs and an armor-like exoskeleton. Its body was shriveled, its translucent skin stretched tight over its bones. "Jesus Christ," Riggs muttered, stepping back. "What the hell were they keeping down here?" Warren crouched beside the creature, his gloved hands trembling as he examined it. "This thing's not dead. It's preserved, like it's been frozen in stasis." Cole finally spoke, his tone grim. "This facility isn't a research station. It's a vault." "A vault for what?" Miller asked, his voice sharp. "For them," Cole said, gesturing to the alien skeleton. "For the things we've found out there." NASA didn't just study the stars, they brought something back. The revelation hit the team like a gut punch. Cross's stomach churned as he pieced it together. "You mean this isn't the only one?" "There were others," Cole admitted. "But this one's different. We've never fully understood it." Before anyone could respond, a low guttural noise reverberated through the walls, sending shivers down their spines. The sound was deep and resonant, as if the glacier itself were groaning in protest. Riggs raised his rifle, scanning the darkness. "Something's down here." The air in the subterranean chamber felt heavier, the low hum of the alien glyphs growing into a deafening resonance. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, vibrating with energy. Cross's hand gripped his rifle tightly as he scanned the room, his pulse pounding in his ears. The chamber seemed to darken, the light from their headlamps barely cutting through the thick, oppressive shadows. Then, it happened. From deep within the passage they had just come through, a sound emerged. A guttural, bone-rattling growl that reverberated through the icy walls. It wasn't mechanical or human. It was something primal, something alive. Cross felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up as he raised his weapon. "Did anyone else hear that?" Riggs asked, his voice low and steady, though his eyes betrayed his unease. "Stay sharp," Cross ordered. "Whatever it is, it's close." The growl grew louder, morphing into a deep, resonant roar that shook the ground beneath their feet. A massive shadow shifted at the far end of the chamber, moving with a fluidity that defied its enormous size. The creature stepped into the light, and for a moment, the team froze in collective disbelief. It was massive, at least 20 feet tall and twice as long. Its serpentine body was a mix of sinewy muscle and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Its head was crowned with jagged, bony protrusions, and its eyes glowed an unnatural blue, cutting through the darkness like twin spotlights. Its skin was translucent, revealing veins that pulsed with a luminous liquid. "What the hell is that?" Miller shouted, stumbling back. "Open fire!" Cross barked. The team unloaded their weapons, the chamber filling with the cacophony of gunfire. Bullets struck the creature's translucent hide, but instead of piercing it, they ricocheted off in showers of sparks. The creature reared back, its glowing eyes narrowing as if in anger, before lunging forward with terrifying speed. Riggs, closest to the creature, was the first to react. He threw himself to the side as its massive tail swept through the air, shattering one of the alien obelisks and sending shards of glowing material flying. The impact sent Riggs sprawling, his rifle skidding across the icy floor. "Riggs, move!" Cross shouted, firing another burst at the creature's head. The bullet struck its glowing eyes, momentarily blinding it. The creature roared in fury, its voice so loud it seemed to rattle the bones in their chests. Warren screamed as a smaller, insect-like creature darted out of the shadows, its spindly limbs clicking against the ice. He swung his flashlight at it, the beam casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The smaller creature lunged, its needle-like appendages aimed for Warren's throat. But Riggs recovered in time, slamming it to the ground with his boot before firing point-blank into its head. The larger creature roared again, its serpentine body twisting as it lashed out with its tail. The massive appendage swept across the chamber, smashing into Miller and sending him crashing into a nearby wall. He crumpled to the ground, groaning as his tools scattered across the icy floor. Cross emptied his magazine into the creature, aiming for the pulsing veins visible beneath its skin. The round struck true, but the creature only seemed to grow angrier. It lunged toward him, its gaping maw revealing rows of needle-like teeth that glinted in the dim light. "Fall back!" Cross yelled, grabbing Miller by the collar and dragging him to his feet. "Move! Move! Move!" The team scrambled toward the nearest passage, their boots skidding on the icy floor. The creature followed, its massive bulk smashing through the obelisks and walls as it pursued them. Shards of glowing material and chunks of ice rained down, forcing the team to dodge and weave as they ran. Riggs turned, firing another burst at the creature's legs in a desperate attempt to slow it down. "Go, I'll hold it off," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "Not a chance," Cross barked, grabbing Riggs by the shoulder and pulling him along. "We're getting out of here together." The creature let out another roar, the sound so loud it seemed to distort the very air. The glyphs on the walls pulsed in time with its movements, casting eerie patterns of light and shadow across the chamber. Smaller creatures scuttled out of the cracks and crevices, their glowing eyes and clicking limbs adding to the chaos. As they reached the end of the passage, the creature lunged again, its massive jaws snapping shut inches from Cross's back. He turned and threw a grenade into its open maw, the explosion lighting up the chamber and filling it with smoke. The creature recoiled, its roars of pain shaking the walls. "This way!" Miller shouted, pointing to an opening ahead. The team sprinted through, the sounds of the creature's pursuit fading behind them, but not far enough. It was still coming, and they were running out of time. The team sprinted through the twisting corridors, their headlamps casting frantic beams of light across the icy walls. The alien glyphs pulsated in rhythm with the low, guttural hum that filled the air, as if the entire facility were alive and aware of their presence. Cross led the way, his rifle held tightly, his breaths shallow and quick in the frigid air. "Where's Riggs?" Miller shouted, his voice echoing. Cross didn't answer. The memory of Riggs's screams was too fresh, and the silence that followed too final. He pushed the thought aside and focused on keeping the team alive. Dr. Warren stumbled, dropping his flashlight. As he retrieved it, he caught sight of something in the corner of his beam, another open vault. He hesitated, drawn by the faint glow emanating from within. "Warren, keep moving," Cross barked. But Warren stepped inside, his curiosity overriding his fear. The chamber was larger than the others, and the walls were lined with containment pods filled with a strange greenish fluid. Suspended within each pod were creatures, alien beings of various shapes and sizes. Some were humanoid, others insectoid, and a few defied classification entirely. Each one was still, as if frozen in time. Miller and Cross followed, stopping in the doorway. "What the hell is this?" Miller muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Warren pointed to a console near the pods, its screen flickering with alien symbols interspersed with human text. He began deciphering it, his hands trembling. These are experiments. They weren't just containing these creatures. They were studying them. Cole entered the chamber, his expression dark. "This facility is part of a classified NASA project, Project Ecliptica. Decades ago, we intercepted signals from deep space. They led us to these creatures." "Why the hell would you bring them here?" Cross demanded. "To understand them," Cole replied. "To prepare, in case they weren't alone." The console beeped, and Warren's eyes widened. "Oh my God," he whispered. "They weren't just preparing, they were weaponizing them." Before Cross could respond, the chamber trembled violently. The glyphs on the walls pulsed brighter, and the green fluid in the pods began to churn. One of the pods cracked, and a long skeletal arm punched through the glass. The creature inside, a spindly, insect-like abomination, let out a piercing screech as it emerged. "Move!" Cross yelled, firing a shot at the creature. The bullet tore through its translucent body, but more pods began to crack open. The air filled with the sound of shattering glass and alien roars. The team ran, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. Creatures spilled from the vaults, their forms shifting and undulating as if adapting to the environment. The lights flickered erratically, casting the corridors in strobe-like flashes that made it impossible to tell where the creatures would strike next. Miller skidded to a stop at a junction, his hands flying to a map on his tablet. "The elevator's just ahead," he shouted, but before he could move, a massive, centipede-like creature lunged from the shadows, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Cross fired a burst, distracting the creature long enough for Miller to scramble away. "Go!" Cross yelled, covering their retreat as they reached the elevator. Cole was already at the controls, frantically smashing buttons. "The power's out," he said, his voice shaking. "We're trapped." "No, we're not," Miller said, pulling a portable generator from his pack. "Keep them off me, I'll get us out of here." The creatures closed in, their alien screams echoing through the chamber. Warren used a broken piece of metal to fend off one that lunged at him, while Cross emptied his magazine into another, buying Miller precious seconds. The generator whirred to life and the elevator doors slid open. "Get in," Miller shouted. The team piled into the elevator and Cole hit the ascent button. The creatures lunged for them as the doors slid shut, but they were too late. The elevator jerked upward, and the sounds of pursuit faded into the distance. As they ascended, the team stood in silence, their breaths heavy. Cross leaned against the wall, his hands shaking. Riggs was gone, and Warren's face was pale with shock. "This isn't over," Cole said, breaking the silence. Cross turned to him, his voice low and cold. "You knew what we were walking into." Cole didn't deny it. "And now you know why we can't let this place fall into the wrong hands." The Resolute sailed silently through the endless expanse of ice and snow, its engines humming softly as the storm raged outside. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was heavy with exhaustion and dread. Cross sat in the briefing room, staring at the frost-covered window. The events at Ice Station Theta played over and over in his mind. The screams, the creature, the chaos. They had lost too much, and the cost of their survival felt unbearable. Miller entered the room, his face pale and gaunt, holding a data pad in his gloved hands. "Captain," he said, his voice tight, "you're going to want to see this." Cross turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. He took the data pad from Miller, its screen glowing faintly in the dim room. The files were logs, recovered from the station's central console before the facility had collapsed. They were labeled with dates and cryptic titles: subject retrieval, containment procedures, Project Ecliptica, Phase 2. "What is this?" Cross asked, scrolling through the files. "Dr. Warren pulled it off one of the consoles before we left," Miller explained, glancing toward the hallway where Warren sat in a daze, still muttering about what they had seen. "I've been going through it, Captain. It's worse than we thought." Cross's jaw tightened as he opened one of the logs. The text was a mix of technical jargon and chilling observations. Subject Alpha retrieved from Kepler 442b. Initial analysis confirms non-terrestrial origin. Specimen exhibits bioluminescent properties, regenerative capabilities, and advanced neural structures indicative of heightened intelligence. Containment protocols revised, risk level upgraded to Omega. Another file detailed the facility itself. Ice Station Theta, designated as primary containment site for extraterrestrial specimens recovered by NASA's Deep Space Initiatives. Facility designed to withstand catastrophic breaches. Secondary goal: weaponization of alien biology for potential defense applications. Cross's hands trembled slightly as he read. Weaponization? They were trying to turn these things into weapons. Miller nodded grimly. And they didn't just have one. There are references to multiple subjects, different sites around the globe. Theta was just one piece of the puzzle. Cross's chest tightened as he opened the next file, a video log. The screen flickered and the grainy image of a researcher appeared. The man's face was pale, his eyes sunken, and his voice was hoarse with fear. "This is Dr. Nathan Armitage, Chief Biologist of Ice Station Theta. If you're seeing this, the containment protocols have failed. Subject Alpha is active. There are others, and they're waking up." The video cut out abruptly, leaving the screen black. Cross set the datapad down, his hands clenched into fists. "This isn't just a rescue mission," he said quietly, his voice thick with anger. "This was a cover-up. They knew this was a ticking time bomb, and they sent us in blind." Miller hesitated, then spoke. "It gets worse. Look at the last file." Cross opened the final file, a global map overlaid with red dots. Each dot represented a location similar to Theta, hidden facilities scattered across the planet. The accompanying text sent a chill down his spine. Global containment sites. Active. Stasis protocols compromised. subjects exhibiting signs of neural communication across vast distances. Potential global breach imminent. Recommend planetary quarantine. Cross stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Planetary quarantine? What the hell does that mean? They're going to leave this for the rest of us to clean up? Before Miller could respond, Agent Cole entered the room. His face was calm, his expression unreadable. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said, his voice measured. "I suggest you hand it over." Cross stepped forward, his body tense. You knew what was happening down there, and you didn't say a damn word. Riggs died. We almost died." Cole didn't flinch. "This isn't about you, Captain. It's about the bigger picture. What's happening at Theta isn't isolated. It's global, and if this gets out, it'll be chaos." Cross slammed the datapad onto the table. "It's already chaos. What's the plan, Cole? Lock it all up and hope no one notices until it's too late." Cole's eyes narrowed. "The plan is containment. Always has been. And if that means sacrificing a few lives to keep the world safe, so be it." Before Cross could respond, the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared, and Miller grabbed the nearest console. "What the hell was that?" he shouted. The lights flickered, and the ship's systems began to fail one by one. Cross raced to the bridge, Cole and Miller close behind. Outside, the storm raged, but something else was visible through the swirling snow. A faint, bluish glow emanating from the ice below. "What is that?" Cross asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Miller checked the sensors, his face going pale. "It's not the storm. It's something below us, something moving." The ship lurched again, and Cross grabbed the controls. "Get us out of here," he shouted. As the Resolute began to pull away, the camera panned back to the ice below. Deep beneath the frozen surface, the faint outlines of massive glowing forms could be seen shifting and moving. The alien glyphs pulsed faintly, their rhythmic light casting eerie patterns into the dark. The last image lingered on one of the glowing forms, large, serpentine, and very much alive, as the screen faded to black.